So we will get into genetics, but I was just wondering what made you fall out of love with it, I guess.
Yeah, back in the day at the beginning, we all thought, all us geneticists, that the things we were studying were probably due to the influence of 3 genes or 6 genes or maybe 20.
And how many genes are there in the human genome?
There are 22,000, and it became clear over time that was laughably naive of all of us geneticists. That is not how most things work. In fact, if you ask the world authority right now on pain genetics, which is my colleague Luda Diachenko, lives just upstairs, she will tell you that out of the 22,000 human genes, probably about 6,500 of them
Are like mapped out.
no, she would. We don't know all 6,500, of course, but she would say that of the 22,000 genes, 6,500 of them are relevant to pain. So how many pain genes are there? There's 6,500. And at that point, it became clear to me that this is not something that people are going to be able to figure out, right? If a third of all the genes are pain genes, what does it even mean to be a pain gene? So I decided that this was a problem that was probably intractable. And I didn't want to spend the rest of my career working on an intractable problem.
That's very fair,
So I
honestly.
switched over to doing other things.
Okay. So then, just a question: how much? So you said in the '90s you had this. There was this belief that we can track genes and it can do like a like an explanation of what's going on in terms of pain.
Yeah.
Um, how far has that gone now? Like, yes, we had the 20 genes as you mentioned, but like now, how long has that like evolved into? Like, how is it now in terms of genetic studies?
Right. So I think the state of the field I could summarize like this: the twin studies and the studies in animals that are equivalent have pretty much consensus on the idea that about 40, maybe 45% of the overall variance to be explained is genetic, and the rest environmental. And of the 6,500 genes contributing to that 45% of the variance, I would say we have a good handle on 50 or so. And of course, that's not to say that it's completely useless. Those 50 genes have led us to a bunch of, hypotheses and may one day provide the basis for analgesic drug development that will change things for the better. So, I'm not saying that genetics is useless. It's just that the original dream of explaining all the variants and being able to predict who's going to develop chronic pain after an injury and who isn't, I think we're very, very far away from that goal.
And just as like a hypothetical question, could computational methods help with that, or?
It could, and big data, so on the one hand, yeah, there's still some reason for optimism, but I've been around long enough to see various cycles of hype turn
Yeah.
into very little. So, if I were a betting man, I wouldn't put any money on it. But that being said, you're right. We have techniques available to us that we could scarcely dream of back in the day. So I don't want to be too pessimistic. And again, as I said, just because I don't think we're going to explain the variance anytime soon does not mean that we don't get something from doing this sort of experiments.
Right.
We do.
Right.